Snipers, you have to see what's happening to the Bitcoin price this Wednesday as we tested the weekly open, and now we have a bullish tail on this daily candle, and we also had a bullish tail on yesterday's daily candle with two daily candles showing bullishness. I want to start talking about what it would look like for Bitcoin to decouple away from the S&P 500 and see strength above 58,353, because one of our most respected contributors on our Discord just posted this interesting headline saying US dollar hits 1-year high, but Bitcoin no longer holds an inverse correlation with it. And with Cathie Woods expecting upside in the cryptocurrency market, and with Bitcoin dominance moving to the upside, remember, there are two things that could happen here with Bitcoin dominance showing strength. Number one, we could be entering a new bull cycle for Bitcoin where altcoins may lag and eventually they will catch up once Bitcoin finds a new high if it breaks into price discovery. Or what happened in the past is Bitcoin dominance moved up when the DXY started to move up in 2018 because the total market cap was starting to decline. However, on this channel, we are open to both sides of the equation, and I am totally fine with talking about a more unlikely scenario because, of course, we like to take the patterns of the past and predict the future, but there are certain times that things change. And so is this the start of a new bull cycle for Bitcoin with the altcoins outside of Ethereum and Bitcoin showing some weakness, testing this 200-day moving average while Bitcoin dominance is trying to break above its 200-day moving average? Does that mean Bitcoin may potentially move into price discovery while altcoins may just range to the side until eventually moving to the upside? Because of course, this would be the scenario that would happen if we can assume that this total cryptocurrency market cap chart is actually forming a bullish pattern, which we could consider a cup and handle. If we look at this high that was formed here in May, we came up, we tested this high, we formed this handle, and now we're testing this neckline. If we're able to break above this, that would make us assume that Bitcoin is entering into a new bull cycle. And so we haven't seen a rejection yet, and we haven't seen a breakout yet. So we've been talking about the scenario that would copy the patterns of the past of the total market cap coming down because Bitcoin dominance is starting to move up. But we haven't really talked much about the scenario that what if Bitcoin is entering into a new bull cycle? And if that is the case, I want to talk about what I'm expecting for Bitcoin, because it's quite obvious at this point that we're seeing strength right now above this weekly open at 54,800. Now that we've had two daily candles wick towards the level and buyers pretty much coming in and buying the dip, if Bitcoin is able, in my opinion, to break 58,353, I think that is a confirmation that we are potentially decoupling away from the S&P 500, and we're going to see a new bull cycle start for Bitcoin. The reason I say that is if we get to this level and we start to see volume come in, it would not take much for us to break into new all-time highs above the $64,855 level and for us to re-enter price discovery. And this breakout would also assume the total market cap is moving up, which means that it invalidates the scenario that the Bitcoin dominance chart is moving up because the total market cap is potentially going to come and move down. If we start to see the total market cap break into new all-time highs, I believe the way this is going to play out is Bitcoin, as it did from this last bull cycle, will enter its price discovery. And when that happens, altcoins may not necessarily follow Bitcoin immediately, but eventually they could potentially follow. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see what happens here over the next 2 weeks, because I think that that's really a time frame that we're going to get answers at this range. Now, at any point in time, if we break below 54,800, the weekly open, then that would put the downside scenario to potentially come down to test this monthly open at 44,800. And the reason I'm eyeing this level as a target versus the $49,700 level is because most of the altcoins that have came down so far have came down towards their 100-day and 200-day moving average and their monthly open. And so I think that this is going to be the invalidation of that thesis that we could potentially see Bitcoin decoupling away from the S&P 500, because if we come back down there, now we're following the S&P 500. So I think that this was a very important topic to cover with, of course, Adonis in our Discord mentioning that there's a potential decoupling effect happening. He's one of the most respected contributors in our Discord. Remember, we have the #1 cryptocurrency Discord group in the world. For those not inside of the Discord group, the link is in the description below. And so with that being said, so far right now, if we start going into these smaller time frames on the 3-hour chart, you can see there's clearly some strength here at this weekly open. The reason I say that is when we first initially came down and tested this weekly open on the 12th of October, we did form a low of 53,879. Now, this next retest that we just had formed a higher low with 54,167 being the low, and now we're starting to see strength. And so that tells me that Bitcoin is still potentially going to start seeing its consolidation above this weekly open, allowing altcoins to not necessarily see a major dump just yet. Of course, a lot of them have already come down, and that has brought Bitcoin dominance up, but that could be, once again, two different scenarios. Number one, Bitcoin entering into a new bull cycle where capital flows into Bitcoin before it finds its next price after price discovery, and then altcoins follow, or we're seeing altcoins hedge into Bitcoin in expectation of downside. And so I think that one of the biggest indicators of this happening, this video is going to be more macro than intraday, just because of the opinions that we're talking about being a little bit against patterns of the past. The total market cap is probably going to be the most important chart to watch here. Now, we look at the total value locked into Ethereum, decentralized finance. If you guys go on DeFiPulse.com, you can view that hitting new highs, but Ethereum's price not hitting new highs. You know, these are all aspects of this new, or I would say abnormal thesis of a decoupling effect happening where Ethereum is fundamentally still extremely strong and it still has that potential of breaking into new all-time highs, and that's going to happen after Bitcoin does, right? And so I think that this is an important topic to cover. Of course, this total market cap is going to be extremely important to watch. The question is this resistance level going to break? Because if this breaks and we start to see new all-time highs in this total market cap, I think it's going to be because Bitcoin is starting its next bull cycle and going into price discovery. So it would make sense that even institutions right now are hedging into Bitcoin, because either one of those scenarios happening, the institutions will win. Because if we see this total market cap reject, then Bitcoin will see less downside. And so it makes sense for Bitcoin dominance right now to move up and for capital to flow into Bitcoin. And then let's say that we do enter another cycle of price discovery for the total market cap. Well, being in Bitcoin will assure that gains are preserved, because Bitcoin will typically move first in that sort of scenario. And so it makes sense that being in Bitcoin right now is a smart decision with Bitcoin dominance moving up. So I think that that certainly is the clearest fact to consider here. And the Bitcoin dominance chart being correlated to the DXY being so strong above this 200-day moving average since June, assumes that regardless of which way this goes, Bitcoin is the best play. And so I think that that's a very interesting thesis that we should talk about. And I think that if this thesis does come true, what would happen to the altcoins is it wouldn't necessarily dump, because if Bitcoin's moving up, altcoins are still fine. It would more likely just range before eventually breaking out into new highs. And so that's also a scenario. We want to watch this 20-week moving average here. Now, the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart, I do want to mention as a potential leading indicator for altcoins, did close a very, very bearish weekly candle. It's a bearish continuation candle last week. And so that, I think, assumes that nonetheless, no matter what happens, the altcoins are not necessarily going to be the first ones to run if this scenario comes to fruition. And so it looks to me that the Ethereum Bitcoin chart could see some downside. Does that mean that Ethereum to US dollar price comes down? Not necessarily, because if Bitcoin starts its price discovery, then the Ethereum to Bitcoin chart can come down, but the Ethereum price could actually come up, just not as strong as Bitcoin, until eventually it will follow when the other altcoins are ready to. And so I think that that scenario is certainly on the table. And I did mention yesterday in my video, with Bitcoin above its previous weekly open and its current weekly open, that the potential, and really it's the current weekly open at 54,800 where we tested it today, as long as we stay above that, altcoins should be fine. I mean, of course, they saw some downside because Bitcoin dominance has been moving up, but as long as we're above 54,800, there's still potential at any point in time we could see these altcoins rally, or at least see some new levels of highs versus coming down. And so Bitcoin coming below this weekly open at 54,800 would be a major concern. Notice how when we came and tested that weekly open today for Bitcoin, Ethereum also came down below 3454 for a second, and that is also a major support right now that would open up a range down below 2,000 US dollars. And so that's why we want to stay above 3454 when it comes to the Ethereum to US dollar price. And I think that a lot of this is going to be unfolding in the next week to 2 weeks, because at some point or another we're going to get an answer. And with the revolving parts outside of the cryptocurrency market, to give you guys the 4-dimensional view, the DXY is still showing strength, but we are coming down right now below the monthly open, trying to come and test this weekly open. Calmness for the DXY is also a very positive thing for the cryptocurrency market. So as long as this isn't continuing its break towards its next target at 95.885, that scenario is certainly going to be on the table, where Bitcoin can see some strength here. But if we start to see this move up, that could be a little bit more detrimental for Bitcoin. But I think that's why Adonis posted this headline, because we're either seeing something that we've never seen before, or we're repeating the patterns of the past where Bitcoin goes against the US dollar. And of course, fundamentals are always going to be on the table, but technicals are more black and white. And so I think it's important to consider the technicals before the fundamentals. And the reason we've been sort of concerned is because, once again, this S&P 500 still below this 100-day moving average. That's not a positive puzzle piece for the cryptocurrency market unless we're seeing this decoupling effect. And so what if Bitcoin is just running up and people are buying the hype towards the ETF news before we see a dump? That's on the table. But once again, I think if we break 58,353, that would be where the volume is going to come in, and that could certainly take Bitcoin into price discovery. So, it's just not normal for us to just kind of form a lower high and then come back above the lower high, to maybe form another lower high. I wouldn't think that that would really be the more likely scenario. We've already come up and broke this lower high. At some point or another, we either reject 58,353 or we're entering into this new bull cycle, and that could be on the table, as I've been saying. So I think that it's interesting to just kind of be a little bit more freestyle and consider the fact that there could be something happening here that's never happened in the past when it comes to patterns of the past. Now, international markets also still showing weakness, with Japan being the largest below all daily moving averages. And we look at China, it's coming above the 50-day, but still quite weak below the 200-day and 100-day. Gold moving up today to test this 200-day moving average. This is an interesting puzzle piece. This indicates some fear in institutional capital right now. So I think that that's also not necessarily the best thing for Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is also similar to gold in a way. So we could assume that it is not the worst thing, but this certainly isn't a good sign for traditional markets. And, one thing that recently happened that I think is important to address is we look at a hard asset against Bitcoin, like silver against Bitcoin. We broke the previous lows that topped Bitcoin out on April 14th. You can see here we actually came below this low, and this was the top for Bitcoin on April 14th. We came below it. Is that telling us something? Is this a puzzle piece that matters? Does that mean that Bitcoin is potentially re-entering price discovery, and we're going to see Bitcoin against silver continue to really challenge it? as a storage of value. It hasn't happened yet with Bitcoin against gold, but it has happened here with Bitcoin against silver. And so I think that that's sort of interesting to watch, because when you break a low like that, I don't know if there's just going to be a double bottom, either, something's going on here. I think that that could justify that opinion that maybe Bitcoin is ready to decouple away from the S&P 500. Certainly an ETF launching for BTC could ignite that sort of decoupling effect, because that wasn't present in the 2018 market. And so when you start adding these new puzzle pieces and these new revolving parts to the market, it could certainly change the patterns of the past. So I hope you guys enjoyed this analysis today. Once again, we have the #1 cryptocurrency Discord group in the world. Link is in the description below. And it's going to be interesting to see how Bitcoin handles itself above 54,800 at this weekly open. That is the major support right now, with our major resistance here at 58,353. Thank you all for tuning into the Snipers channel today. Until next time, snipers